Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, this is Red Berry Leo here, and welcome back to another Civil Air Patrol video. Wait, if it's Civil Air Patrol video, I don't need my headphones on. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the position of Cadet Commander, and what I'm going to be basing it off of is talking a little bit about what's in the Cadet Staff Handbook, which is linked down below, and also some of my personal experience. So let's go ahead and talk about it. So the role of the Cadet Commander is one of the most challenging ones in the squadron. Most cadet commanders are supposed to be between a cadet captain and cadet colonel, because that is like the phase 4 of the cadet program, which is that overarching indirect leadership role where you are setting goals with your overall unit, mentoring and providing feedback to your flight commanders, and working actively to ensure that all requirements are met with the cadet program that are listed in 60-1 in terms of contact hours, and making sure that the cadets learn how to wear their uniforms properly through delegation. So I just went very briefly through all of the points, but so one of the things is that you, as the cadet commander, are providing feedback and making sure that the cadets in the unit are given formal and informal feedback. So formal feedback is done through the 60-90 series, where there are feedback forms that you should be doing at least once per phase, and you are talking about what you are proud of, what you've accomplished in the past phase, what you would like to further improve upon, and that's also while talking to your leadership. So like a flight commander or like whoever is the next step in your chain would be leading that feedback session. And this is very important because feedback allows you to grow. So knowing what you have been doing well and sharing what you feel proud of helps with transparency. And as the cadet commander, it's their job to make sure that the unit is actively providing feedback, not just like once a year, not just once a month, but all the time. Whenever a cadet finishes teaching a class, they should receive some sort of feedback and just like debrief on how it went so that they can grow from that experience. Every single opportunity that you attend for Civil Air Patrol, everything that you do is a learning opportunity, whether you're a cadet or a senior member. If you're not getting something out of it, then either something should change in your personal actions, like what your objectives are when you're attending those activities, how much effort you're putting in addition to potentially the leadership getting more actively involved and investing a little bit more to make sure that members are all getting something out of the exercise. So when you are a Phase 4 cadet, it can actually be very challenging to be engaged with the program if you're not in the cadet commander or cadet deputy commander position. Part of that is because there really isn't additional curriculum for you to go off of. If you're over 18, then yes, you can do air crew training, you can be a GTL, and like ground branch director, air branch director, but that's after you've turned 18. And let's say if you like graduated high school at the age of 17, then there's that period where you're really not getting much out of it. Or if you get to phase 4 before you turn 17, then there isn't a ton of opportunities for cadets to take advantage of. And so sometimes you need to expand your horizons by making opportunities. Like when I wasn't actively serving as a cadet commander, I created different activities for my unit to participate in. And I would actively work with a senior member counterpart in the unit and actively brief the CDC and the squadron commander on what the activity would be, any potential support that we might need, and move forward to provide more opportunities for others to get involved in CAP by starting an activity and then allowing people to hopefully later on do it as well. And sometimes these were social activities, which, to be fair, not a lot of CAP units do social activities. They sometimes do, but most times it's just trainings. And so some of them were also training opportunities, like doing emergency services training. But all in all, you should consider both inside training and like outside social activities. So that was a little bit of a tangent, but as a Phase 4 cadet, in serving that position, there will be challenges. When making requests or trying to accomplish things on the cadet side, and you may need senior member support. So for example, if you are running a cadet staff selection exercise and you are the cadet commander, the first 6-month term has ended for your support staff, and for the next 6 months you need a new support team before, after another 6 months you transition power and then the next support team comes in. So for the selection exercise, you have decided that you would like to do an activity that evaluates teamwork and communication within cadets. And in this activity, you find 6 different traits that are positive and 6 different traits that are negative, and these are observable behaviors. They don't line up or anything, but you need senior member support. You need it, and without it, you would not be able to do the activity. So for that activity, let's say that you think you need 2 senior members to be evaluating cadet staff applicants. My recommendation is to approach whomever you are asking for support as a request. So let's say you're asking the CDC for support. You might say, "Good evening, sir or ma'am. Would it be possible for us to see if there are senior members who might be willing to support this?" Or saying something along the lines of, "Would you be willing to assist with finding senior member support for this activity?" Something along those lines. Forming things as a request gives that person the option to say no. And even though they may not necessarily say no, it's best to avoid putting people in a position where they feel like they're required to do something. So it's almost like giving the person the option of saying yes or no, "I will help you find senior member support." But at the end of the day, they're most likely going to say yes. Even though you could say it as, "We need senior member support. Could you find 2 senior members?" That seems like more of a demand as opposed to, "Would you be willing to assist in finding senior members who could potentially support this upcoming cadet staff selection process?" Okay, so another responsibility of the cadet commander, I'm going to go back to the responsibilities, is ensuring that all activities are planned ahead of time and that communications are transparently spread throughout the cadet corps. This can be a little bit challenging because I am aware that some units plan their schedule like a few days before their meeting or a week before their meeting instead of planning things out in advance. It's true that some squadrons cannot really plan ahead a ton because senior member support might be a little bit iffy. Like, you may not have a ton of senior members, and even if you do, like, the person who's going to teach may not show up. There's also sometimes that there isn't a large enough of a cadet staff in order to mentor a very largely younger and less experienced cadet corps. And when those things happen, it's very helpful to plan at least a month or 2 in advance, or at least I suggest trying to come up with a quarterly plan if you can, on like what the weekly rotation for the schedule is, like what are we doing each week of the month, like when are we doing aerospace education, when are we doing leadership, character development, and PT, which weeks in the month, and what uniforms are we wearing for each of those lessons. And then on top of that, trying to see if there are people who are willing to teach those classes when you're doing that quarterly planning so that they know weeks in advance. And if they don't know if they'll be available, then they won't volunteer to teach that class. They could volunteer to teach that class, but they could be like an assistant instructor, and there would be a primary instructor, and then the 2 of them could collaborate prior to the class being taught. There have been times where I put together, like when I was a cadet commander, I put together a schedule months in advance with my cadet staff, and some of my cadet staff members just stopped showing up, and they were signed up to teach those classes, which made it very challenging for me because I ended up having to teach classes that I wasn't initially prepared to teach, but then I got prepared before the meetings. Like 2 weeks in advance, I would prepare the materials and try to make sure that I felt comfortable enough with teaching those materials to the cadets in the unit. Another one is coordinating the cadet staff activities. So whenever you want to have a planning meeting, that would be something that you coordinate. If you wanted to do a training weekend of some kind, virtually or in person, that's also something that you would put together. My recommendation for any cadet commander is at least to have one weekly conference call with your team. whether it be with just like what you consider a command team, which would be like the cadet commander, the deputy commander, and the first sergeant, or like deputy commanders if you have support and operations deputies. Or if you wanted to include flight commanders in it, it does depend on the size of your unit, but it would totally be up to the cadet commander to decide. The reason for weekly meetings is to sync up and make sure everyone is on the same page. If there have been tasks that are delegated out, those weekly meetings would be a good time to follow up with people. And they shouldn't really be the same night of the week as your weekly meetings. And the reason why I say they shouldn't be on the same night is because people are all focused on the squadron meeting, and sometimes it's good to take a step back away from the meeting and then give people a chance to relax, reflect, and then let's say like on Sunday evenings or on Monday evenings, like if you meet on Wednesdays or Thursdays or something, like halfway between the week, just like check in briefly for 30 minutes with your team. I found this to be particularly useful. I did this for encampment with my cadet command staff team, where we had the group commanders, because it was a wing level. So we had the group commanders, the command chief, myself. All of us would go on the calls. We would talk about what happened that week, any challenges that had come up, and if we would like any additional support from like the commandant of cadets or the encampment commander, if there was something that we thought might need to be addressed, then I would discuss that with them as the cadet commander representing the cadets. So that kind of leads me into my next point of the cadet commander serving as a conduit and kind of like a voice for the cadets in the unit. Sometimes senior members don't have visibility over specific things, like if there's bullying in the unit, or if the cadets feel like they are not getting enough support from senior members, then the cadet commander should serve as an advocate for the cadet corps. Sometimes the CDC might be very much aware and attuned to these needs, but if you feel that they may not be, it would be good to be transparent. And so if there's a command team meeting, like the cadet commander meeting with the CDC, the CDS, and the squadron commander, all of you coming together discussing concerns and areas for improvement and what we can do as a team to make sure that the squadron is an all-inclusive environment and that everyone feels like they belong and that they're improving themselves while also improving their community. So the next one that this lists here is promoting excellence. I think cadet commanders should in general promote all of the core values just because they have made it so far into the cadet program. If they hadn't really been abiding by the core values, then their prior leadership has most likely not done the best job in providing feedback, guidance, and mentorship, because Phase 4 cadets should be modeling positive behaviors. And so modeling is when your actions should then be observed by others, and then others will follow suit with those behaviors. So if you carry yourself with excellence, let's say at your squadron meetings, you are at a location that has to put all the chairs away at the end of the meeting. Like everyone takes their chairs out at the beginning, and then they put them away. A positive example of excellence would be if the cadet commander is getting in there and serving by assisting with putting those chairs away, taking that initiative and working with their people. A poorer example of this a poorer example of not acting with excellence might be if the cadet commander is just sitting on their phone next to the doorway waiting for everyone to leave while people are putting the chairs away. So think of, how do you want to be remembered as the cadet commander? Do you want to be remembered as the one that planned ahead, the one that set goals, the one that mentored their cadet staff members one-on-one? Or do you want to be remembered as the cadet commander that did their job, the schedule happened each week, and that's about it? I challenge you to push yourself, to go above and beyond expectations. Don't just read the Cadet Staff Handbook and be like, here's my checklist of things that I have done. Okay, my checklist is done. I've won being Cadet Commander. There is no way to be a perfect leader. And you have all the potential in the world. You can do anything with position. And it's what your actions are that help shape you and shape the unit. Whether you stay at that unit after you're done in your tenure or if you leave. That job that you do has a lasting impact. So that's just something to keep in mind. The last one that's listed in the Cadet Staff Handbook is leading formations. So when the entire squadron falls in, the squadron first sergeant falls everyone in, but then you take the report. And so you're like, report, and then the first sergeant's like, all present and accounted for, sir or ma'am. And then you say post, and then it's very exciting, and you can do announcements and such. But that is everything that I wanted to discuss with the Cadet Commander video. I have more thoughts on Cadet Commander stuff. Like, the experience of being Cadet Commander for encampment was very different from being a Cadet Commander at a unit. And that's because of the amount of effort that's required, in addition to the time that has to be put into each of those positions. So if you're interested in hearing a little bit more, I have talked about my experience with encampment in the video linked in the iCard. I talked a little bit about encampment experience, and if you want to hear more about squadron level stuff, I'd be more than happy to share that as well. So please let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and that is all, folks. Until next time, doodles.